Yes. Right. Okay, we're recording. Oh my God, how exciting. Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is John Morrissey, and I'd like to introduce you to Ruth Mullholland, is one of my best friends in the entire world, and that's not an exaggeration. I probably won't say that to everybody who does that with me. Well, I won't
One
say
of my
best friends.
one of my closest 100 or so friends.
Definitely in the top 10 of the reserves. Definitely.
I'll take it.
So the reason why I'm here, this is really weird because I don't think anyone will watch this, but I don't care. So I'm literally talking to myself and you, Ruth. But
And my mum.
and your mom and your mom. Hello, Patty. Hey, Patty.
She'll probably watch it.
Oh, Patty. I had been doing some YouTube videos by myself, and I got so over that. So I made a list. I'm a terrible list maker, very OCD-like. So I made a list of 15 international films. I'm going to say international films, not foreign films, because that just suddenly sounds a little bit racist. Foreign films. International films that are often in the top 10 best films ever made, and I've never seen them. And so I thought I'm going to make somebody else watch them with me. Just make me watch it, first of all, because I probably just switch it off after half an hour if I thought it was just me. No, that's not a very good start, is it? But to make me watch it, and also to sort of, just find out whether it's just me who thinks they're good or bad or overrated or whatever, and see if we, I'm not a film student. I don't think Ruth is a film student, unless it's part of her life that she hasn't told me about. And so we're just like, I'm definitely a film buff. I would say I'm a buff. But yeah, so let's see if we get why these are great. And I'm not going to make myself go, oh yeah, I'm going to think about it. I'm going to study. I'm going to literally see how it makes me feel, kind of thing. And so I'm asking some of my friends to do that with me. And this is the first one. And so Ruth Mullholland. And Ruth Mullholland and I, we work together.
When we work.
When we work, yes, we're currently on lockdown. And so this is a bit of a lockdown project. Probably both of us wouldn't have 5 minutes to do this in real life, would we?
I definitely wouldn't spend 2 hours, 15 minutes of my free time watching a Japanese movie.
No. Which brings me on to the reason why we're here. And the film I chose for Ruth and I to watch is I can't remember his first name. It's Japanese. So I'm just going to call him Ozu, Japanese, very respected and famous Japanese film director, and his probably most famous film, Tokyo Story. I think I'm right in saying it's from 1953. I really should have written all this. Yeah, nice. Thank you, Ruth's coming in there. It's from 1953. And so I've made a list of, we're going to be really naff here because I've got a load of categories and I'm going to mark them out of 10. I don't care.
Ooh, fun.
Not watching. Barry Norman's not watching. I don't care.
I don't care.
We're not going to upset the Ozu estate. So Ruth, can you tell me what you thought of the story of Tokyo Story? Story
first.
Don't hold back.
Don't hold back. Okay. I did think for the first 45 minutes, why on earth am I watching this movie? Is anything actually going to happen? Because it's very stylized and the pace of it is quite slow, I think. And it's, you're sort of waiting for, I think, because I didn't know what to expect and I deliberately didn't read anything about it beforehand, so I could go in with like an open mind. And I was sort of waiting for something to happen.
Yeah.
But you sort of get settled into it because it's 2 hours and 15 minutes, so you've got a lot of time to settle in.
Yeah.
Once you settle into it, I don't know, I found it quite moving in a way, and it was fun having both of us having been in Tokyo in September. When they mentioned places, I was like, I know where that is.
Exactly. But the thing is, you kind of think, oh, I recognize that, because you don't recognize it in Tokyo, because Tokyo changes every 5 minutes. And so
Yeah.
the 1953 Tokyo, although when they go on the tour, I was thinking that looks familiar. You know, when they go on the tour bus, I was thinking
Yeah.
it looked familiar, but I mean, I couldn't place exactly where it was, but it looked familiar.
I
But
mean, if you were trying to summarize the plot,
mm,
it's just about a family, isn't it? It's not.
yeah, it's a family. I don't want to say drama. I don't think drama.
It's
Like,
not even a melodrama. It's like a family. It's
yeah,
like a snapshot of a family.
yeah. And I did a little bit of research on Ozu today, just because I thought I don't know
Mm.
who he is. And families were his theme in all his films, and very much the room that you see from a distance, like you're standing in the doorway and watching these people
Mm.
come in and come out, and the camera just stays really still. People come in,
Yeah.
sit down, they stand up. There's hardly any close-ups during scenes of a lot of people together. You're just like an observer from the window or something.
Mm.
And like you, unfortunately, I too was a bit thrown by the time, because I thought it was an hour and a half, because I glanced down after an hour and a half, and I looked to the right, and I thought, oh, it says hour and a half. That means it's an hour and a half long. But that meant it had an hour and a half to go.
To go.
And then I was thinking, literally, this is going to be a film about nothing, because nothing has happened yet. There's lots of people. There's a nice old couple living in a house. Although they've said at one stage she's 68. I was like, 68? That's old. It's not old now.
No, it's not old now.
Uh,
And also, they haven't aged very well if she is 68.
yeah, I was going to say, yeah, she's 68.
Well, I guess they had a bit of a hard life. I don't know.
Yeah. And so I was thinking, literally nothing's happened. But you start to really subtly get the plot. And the plot is basically that they visited one of their children for a couple of days in Tokyo from the countryside. And I can't remember the name of the place, but I've got a feeling that you go through it now on the bullet train, because the name of the place rang a bell.
The name where they live, or
Yeah.
where they went to the spa?
The place where they live, not the spa, the place where they came from, because it was something
Oh,
like
yeah.
almost something. And I thought that rings a bell. And I did read that you can now get there in 4 hours, but in those days it would literally take.
It took them a day or something, didn't it?
Yeah. So it's been a big deal. They've turned up, and then you start to realise that even though they don't hate their kids, or the kids don't hate them, they're sort of in the way. And the kids are they're an inconvenience, and the kids are sort of passing them off from pillar to post. I mean, I say kids, they're all grown-ups with families.
Yeah.
And so it becomes really touching, the way that the parents don't want to inconvenience their children. The children think that they're accommodating their parents by organising trips that they obviously don't really want to do, and sending them things that they don't really want to do. And what they really want is for them to just sit down with them and talk to them and spend some time with them.
It's painfully polite, isn't it?
Totally painfully polite. You kind of think.
And I was trying to figure out, I guess because you're reading a translation, so we don't hear like nuances of tone in Japanese like you would if it was in English. But I'm sort of trying to figure out if they're like, no, it's fine, don't trouble yourself.
Yeah, if there's a bit of
no, it's fine. You know, if they are actually being chill about it, or if they're just being really like,
yeah, it's like
fine.
You were just wishing the mother would say, "Oh, stop being so selfish! For God's sake, you haven't seen me for years. You know, somebody
Just take a day off work, for God's sake."
Somebody say what they think. You know, it's
yeah.
That's kind of excruciating. And so no, plot-wise, you know, if you're just judging these on these really banal categories I've come up with, but there are more categories later which will compensate for it. If you're talking, if you're the sort of person who, you know, loves a good yarn.
Oh no, don't watch this film.
No, it's not for you. And I don't think the director is interested in that, and he certainly wasn't interested in that in any of his other films. The thing I read said he wasn't interested in plot at all.
Well, mission achieved. Well, then he was excellent at his work.
He was very interested in human relationships, so he gets full marks on that. And his style, which we'll get onto a bit later. So yes, I would say, and I mean, you know, this is just for the silliness of these categories. I would say like 3 out of 10 for the plot.
Like if you are looking for a good old story, like if you want like a 90s thriller kind of, you know, vibe, you're not going to get that.
No, you're going to fall asleep before anything even happens.
Yeah. Although the good thing about it being in Japanese was that I actually concentrated for the whole film, because I know I'm so terrible at just being on my phone as well.
Yeah.
So having to read was helpful.
I call that the Borgen effect, where I actually managed to look on my phone for a whole episode of Borgen, and it came to the end, and I realised, oh right, I didn't really understand a word of that because I'm
No.
half listening, but I was Danish.
Yeah, you're like, oh, I don't speak Danish. I was trying that with Philharmonia, which is in French, and I was like, I know enough French, it's fine. And then I was like, no, I don't.
They speak too fast.
Yes, it's true, and they like conflate words together and stuff.
You can get these sitcoms on YouTube, which are made to teach you French and things, where they just say hello, goodbye, and then there's a really naff laughing soundtrack in the background. But I wish all French films and literally international films in general were like that, because you think I'll understand a bit of it, but
yeah,
people just speak too quickly, and so yes, not great marks for plot on this. And the next thing I've got down is photography, camera work. How did you feel that?
it was very, again, I think stylistically it was hard to settle into, because it was almost as if they had done the scenes not when they were together, because it was very much like I am talking, so the camera is on my face.
It's like this, isn't it?
Talking, and yeah, like this. Your camera's on your face.
So
and it was like, were you in the room together, or did they film on separate days? I don't know. It was a bit off-putting to begin with, because it almost felt like it was very like, I'm talking to you now. It was a bit creepy.
Yeah.
But then, there was a lot of like atmosphere shots.
Clothesline.
But I really liked those.
There was a clothesline for about 5 minutes.
There was a clothesline for about 5 minutes.
I thought that was nice. I liked the clothesline, but yeah.
And a train choo-chooing along.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I must admit, because I think I'd seen a program about this film years ago, and I remember them talking about this particular style of his, which is completely different to Hollywood. And I think, so I was a bit more ready for it, because in Hollywood films of the time, there's very much a classic setup. The camera would film from afar, 2 people talking, then they'd film over one shoulder, film over another shoulder, and then
scene.
And then that's the end of it. So you would always see the other person while the other person's talking to them on the shoulder, looking up into their eyes or whatever. And there's none of that. He doesn't have that. He has, like I said earlier, he has a shot from the room, and you see the room. And then it's like I'm talking to Ruth now, only you would see me, and I would say, hello, Ruth. And then Ruth would come on, she'd go, hello, John. And it'd be like we were in the same room. So then you're suddenly, from being an observer, you're suddenly now one of the characters, then you're another character. And I didn't find that a bit disconcerting myself, because you didn't feel like an observer then. You felt like, am I supposed to be the person that person's talking to? Do you know what I mean?
And I was trying to figure out if it was like, because it didn't do it all the time either. So I was trying to figure out if it was like specific moments that they had like chose, but I don't think it was.
No.
Maybe I need to watch the film another 17 times and also learn Japanese, and then I can have more of an opinion on it.
I think there are people who watch these films over and over again. I mean, I don't know. I'd like to sort of. I went back and watched Parasite the other day for the second time, and that film you should watch again, because I watched it obviously like everybody else the first time in the cinema.
I didn't. I haven't seen it yet. Right.
I loved it, but I was ever so slightly. I love it, but there's an awful lot of hype. This is the greatest film ever made. I didn't quite get that, but I watched it a second time, and the genius kicks in. It's like a sort of, piece of music that I think you get more out of every time you watch it. There's a lot.
Right. Okay.
That you notice when you know how the story's going to go. Like this. Anyway. But so, I'm not sure that you get that at Tokyo Story, because I think it's very simple.
No, I mean, I guess knowing what happens in the end, you could go back and see if they were like. I mean, there are a few points where you think, oh, are they setting something up? And eventually, it did pay off at the end. I mean, pay off is the wrong term to use.
Yeah, that line, which is a famous line because I looked at quotes from Tokyo Story. Life is disappointing is the most famous line for it. She says, and that I thought that was heartbreaking. I thought she was absolutely wonderful. In fact, I'm going to get onto acting later, but I'm going to say the daughter-in-law, she has got probably the best part in the whole film. Noriko, she was heartbreaking at the end because she said,
"Oh yeah, gorgeous,
slightly manic mask that she's got all the way through."
Yeah, she's like
fake, totally
so
fake.
beautiful. I think she's so beautiful. She doesn't want to crack her face.
Yeah, and so nice, and so I mean, you kind of think, is she so nice because I don't know, is it better to be honest like the other sister and be just, well, I don't want them here? You know?
No, she's just mean, that sister. She's so horrible.
But there is a suggestion that the father is a recovering alcoholic.
Recovering alcoholic, yeah.
And not so recovering in this because he does get very drunk. And so
only once, though.
Only once. But there is a suggestion that growing up, the mother had a lot of trouble with him. And possibly the kids remember that. But that's never spoken about openly. That's only.
But even the way they talk about that is really funny because they only talk about it in the context of Noriko's dead. We think, well, we're not sure he's dead. He died in the war, or maybe husband. So, like, she's like, oh, did he used to drink? Oh, you had trouble with him, like I had trouble with my husband. But they never.
Yes.
It's all like danced around.
Yeah, they never actually say.
They never actually say this guy was a drunk and he was awful.
And I think my best, I'm probably skipping over, but you know, I think I spoke to you because we did have a little chat about it last night.
No, we didn't.
No, it's what I say because I missed the day, and when Ruth contacted me, went, "I'm ready," and I'm like, "Oh."
What are you talking about? Okay.
Yeah, can you go?
Well done.
So literally, she's been sitting there for 24 hours waiting for me. She hasn't moved. So we did that, and we had a little chat. No, I am going to do that because I just, it'd be quite good to sort of know people's vague feeling about it before we start. So we spoke a little bit about it last night, and what were we talking about? Noriko, wasn't it? And I can't remember what I was going to say. Oh, but the drunken scene in the bar. Now, you see, I really loved that. That was, I mean, and I've sat in a bar till 4 o'clock in the morning.
In Japan.
And there's a load of Japanese guys at the bar who literally sleep there because they can't.
Yeah.
And so they don't get thrown out. They get drunker and drunker and drunker, and then they just fall asleep on the side, and then they stay there. And that reminded me of that. That was
yeah.
You know,
you can really see as well in the mean daughter, who's, I can't remember her name, but
yeah, I can't remember.
She's like, when he comes home, the police bring him home because he's so drunk.
Yeah.
He's so annoyed by it, and so like.
I did feel a little bit for her though, because.
Yeah, no, I do feel a bit for her then, but then she'd fat shamed her mum before, so I didn't like her too much.
Yeah, that was.
It was so brutal. She was so fat when we were younger. I was embarrassed by her because she broke a chair once. You're like, and again, your mum.
Like you're saying, maybe it lost a lot in translation. Maybe if you heard it, because it might be something. It would still be horrible, but it might be something that you get in a film now, and you go, "That's horrible," but you can see she's joking, but she's just her mom. But in Tokyo Story, it just sounded like she's just being really
vile. Yeah. It was literally the second thing she said to her when she came in, having not seen her for ages. She just traveled on a train for like 26 hours to get to Tokyo. Like the second thing she says is, "Do you remember when you were so fat that you broke a chair?" Like, nice to see you too.
And there was very much an emphasis on the children, and the adults are the genuine ones, because the children have a real strop at the mother for cancelling their plans.
Yeah.
And you kind of think, you know, you're ignoring your children and you're ignoring your parents, and you're totally obsessed with your life. And that is, of course, a really, I think apparently it's a subject of most post-war Japanese films, but there's a very subtle, this is a film about old Japan and new Japan.
Yeah, but even in their costume, you can see that.
Yeah, Yeah,
Because
yeah,
the mother is still in the kimono, and the children are all dressed much more Western, and
yeah,
their hair as well.
yeah. And they come in, and this uh, just immediately made me sympathetically ache in my knee. The elderly parents get up and down off the floor every 2 minutes, and I'm
It's
like,
mad. I
I
can do that now.
dude, I couldn't have done that at 25 because I've got a dodgy knee. So I would have just had to stand all the time, or something.
Yeah, be a bit incongruous in the quiz. Is John okay? Yeah, he just can't sit down. It's fine.
And, and so they get up and down really easily as well. It's like, should we sit on the floor, blonk? And I'd be like,
Blonk. Blip. The thing I don't know if I found funny about one of the son is a doctor. They seem to live in a house that you can't lock the front door. The door slides open, a bell rings.
oh yeah, I never noticed.
And it's so weird. Because Rico's apartment had a door that locked.
Yeah.
And the sister's like salon or whatever that they lived behind. I never quite figured out, was that a hair salon? And then they just slept behind the hair salon.
Yeah, they were actually sleeping in the hair salon, weren't they?
Yeah.
So that was maybe an indication of that it wasn't the Japan we know today, which is just unbelievably advanced in pretty much everything. Well, the bits that we see when we're on tour.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, that seemed weird because they get disturbed in the night, like we were saying by the father, and they seem to be asleep in between.
Like there's 2 steps up or something, and that's like hair salon, bedroom. Strange.
I thought that was a bit odd. I thought, is that some comment on how poor they were and because I didn't notice. I don't know about you. I didn't notice until the father mentioned it that he's quite a low class doctor, and he seems to be in a poor area. And I couldn't work out whether. I mean, that was one of the rare occasions where the parents didn't seem like angels on Earth, because they had this beautiful music in this film, and every time not much music in it, but occasionally the parents appear, and there's this beautiful tune, and they speak in a very almost childlike way to each other, and they never seem to be annoyed or upset about anything on the surface. But that he says, well, my son is. I think that's when he's drunk, isn't he? Always been drinking.
Yeah, I think because they're like comparing children with the friends.
That's right. Yeah.
Like, well, you're lucky because your son, and he's like, oh no, actually, my son's quite a lowly doctor, and
a lowly doctor.
He talks about them living because he thought they'd live in like central Tokyo, and they don't somehow. They seem to.
So they've never seen that. So that there's this idea that even though they're all being really nice and respectful, he's actually quite disappointed. And they're all too busy really to take care of them. So I mean that. But that's kind of sad. But there's an underlying melancholy, not helped by the music, which is very.
No, it's very strings.
Right. I think we covered because the next thing I put is direction. And I mean, because the camera work is so tied up in his direction, I think we've sort of covered that.
Yeah. There's a beautiful we talked about when the grandmother takes the little kid out for the walk.
I absolutely loved that scene.
It's so lovely because it was so simple, and you saw them like up the hill together, and then
playing, and he's playing, and
kind of playing, and her trying to. Because they're not, I mean, they do decide later, which really cracked me up, and I don't know why, because it was that whole scene where they're like, some people seem to prefer their grandchildren to their children. I think I prefer my children. I'm like, oh, God, poor they hate their grandchildren, clearly.
I remember, doesn't the mother say, go and take, like, I just sort of a way I can solve both my problems at once. I'm going to get my annoying mother to take my annoying child.
Yeah. Out for a walk, go for a walk.
Out for a walk, go for a walk. And so the mother's probably feeling, I'm just being used here, really. So but there is a moment where she's sort of sitting there watching him play, and she's got a beautiful expression on her face, really beautiful.
Yeah.
Is she thinking about when she was that age, or is she thinking, wish I was that age? but it's one of those expressions that it's up to you to lay on it. And then she says, "What are you going to do when you grow up?" to the child. And I just think for a film of that time, I think nowadays you would expect that kind of subtlety. It's a sort of subtlety you didn't get in many Hollywood films at that time. That, you know, lush music, the mother would be crying, she would hug the child. But it's, you know, but it's very, but you don't, that's the genius. I think that is why I can see why this guy is a genius, because you do get that. You get exactly what's going on without trying that hard. And it's very simple what he does.
It's all beautifully like still. There's not a lot of like.
No.
What was it? Someone said in RuPaul the other day, "I have a glamorous headache."
Yes.
There's not a lot of that acting.
I still see this in opera though. I have, you know, I was going to say Ruth and I work in opera though. Like anyone who doesn't know me is going to watch this. So by the way, for all my fans
out there.
Yes. I should advertise something like, this is where I hold up something and get sponsorship.
Oh, yeah. Product placement.
Yes, but because I was previously an actor when I went into opera, not everybody, but I saw a bit of this, like, I'm crying, I'm shocked, I'm this, I'm all this kind of thing, and I was like, what is going on?
What is happening?
There is a very famous Victorian book of, you know, postures and poses of, you know, and I think it's sort of, you know, shock and grief and all this sort of thing. And I thought, have they been reading that?
Have they been reading this book?
So yeah, there's none of that. It's actually really quite modernly acted, isn't it?
Almost to a point that it makes it feel like it feels a bit weird. Like it's so like it's both naturalistic and then very repressed, almost, you know. So they're like, you can imagine that this is exactly how that family would have acted with each other.
Yeah, totally.
It's like under the surface stuff and not a lot coming out.
And we did see that in Japan, didn't we? We did see a incredibly polite. I mean, it's silly to talk about it.
Oh my God, so polite. Ridiculous. Well, not ridiculously polite. I loved it. But yeah.
The ones that we met, I can only talk about the ones we met, and there was a lot. Unbelievably polite and totally humble in their, and totally pleased that you're there. And there was an incident where I was accidentally at the front, pushed myself at the front of it. It was accidental. I stood at the front of a queue to get onto the tube.
John Morrissey.
I know, but I just didn't realise they were all queuing up in a line about a foot behind me. Now, if I did that here, literally yelled at me, swore at me.
Probably pushed you in front of the train.
Pushed me in front of the train. I turned round and they were all laughing. And they thought it was hilarious because they realised.
But that's also because you're 75 feet tall.
That's possibly.
They're probably like, he didn't see me.
And I was mortified, of course, and so tried to move, and they wouldn't let me. No, they wouldn't let me. They wanted me to stay exactly where I was. Well, and that wasn't a rare thing.
No.
You know, there's a real beauty about the people there. But what you see in this film is that, but you also see that, you know, that amount of not saying what you really think and this mask of, you know, gentility, it can have its down, you know, when people are feeling repressed. And I think that really comes out in the daughter-in-law at the end. And you realise that.
I wonder as well if that's why the brutalness of the daughter comes across, because the rest of the, like, I mean, she's still really polite, but the couple of things that she says that are quite
awful. Yeah, you're awful. They're really, really shocking, and because they're thrown into relief, because, like you say, because everything else is so polite. But then that I thought was so real when she reacts so badly when she finds out her. I'm sorry, plot spoilers here, but you know.
Oh yeah, spoiler alert: the mom died.
Spoiler alert! But you know, believe you me, it's not Murder at the Vicarage.
Yeah, she just died. Like nobody kills her. She dies of. We don't know what she dies of.
She dies of.
They're fat again. So I was like, what? You don't die from being overweight.
Yeah, It says
She's
that.
not even that fat.
It says on the death certificate she was fat.
Fat.
How did she die? She was fat only.
Fat. It's just her body just gave up.
So yeah, and they sort of announce it, and she just has a meltdown, and not in a melodramatic way, in a real way. Like, her love for her mother was real, but her surface relationship with her mother was a little dysfunctional. But she absolutely melts down, and I thought that rang really true to me. I thought that's you see, that's a sort of naturalism and insight into human behaviour that you get in great playwrights. That people don't do the normal thing. People aren't one-dimensional. People aren't mean all the time.
Some people are. But...
yeah, let's not name names. But
let's talk about a few. But yeah.
And some people do things that surprise you, and nice people do mean it, and blah blah blah. So I really loved that, and I really started to love the film more as it went along.
Yeah, me too, definitely.
Yeah, I certainly thought.
And I think knowing that the mum, it almost like, had I known, like, if it was bookended by the mum's death, like the story, would that make more sense of the like if the mother knew that she was dying, then going on this final trip to see the children and having them treat her so not poorly, like they didn't leave her in the street or whatever. Well, actually they kind of did, because she ended up staying with Noriko because
they're like they joke about being homeless. They say
homeless.
We're homeless at our age, and then they laugh and they think, because all your kids think you're somewhere else and you've got nowhere to go. That was painful, I thought.
That was painful. It was like they were so concerned with being so polite and like not causing any trouble that they nearly ended up sleeping on. I mean, he just went and got drunk at that bar.
Yeah, exactly. And she went to stay on the daughter-in-law's
with lovely Noriko.
Lovely Noriko's floor. But
who seems too good to be true, but what a lovely lady.
She was. I'm pretty sure that I'm not think I'm like Noriko, because I think if it's ever a film that's a lesson in, it's good to be nice, but don't be stupid. Nice is great, but
don't be an idiot.
Don't be an idiot, as you'll end up homeless.
Yeah.
So I think, they should really have gone round to the daughters and said, we're not walking the streets, for God's sake.
What do you want me to do? I didn't just need to sleep somewhere.
Exactly. And they sort of go home, don't they? They get to that awful spa. I think...
I felt so sorry for them, because they were so excited about it as well. And they were like, we're by the beach and this is great. And then there was just like people playing whatever gambling they were doing and drinking and playing terrible music.
And I suddenly got an impression of what Japan was like without air conditioning, because they're doing this night. Because
probably like it feels here right now.
Yeah. The mother can't get to sleep, or the father can't get to sleep, and he's fanning himself.
I think both of them. Yeah.
But I honestly think they never liked it. I think they were trying to like it. I don't know about that. You might be right, but I thought they were sitting there going, "This is great. We'd rather be."
This is so lovely. Yeah, but we just don't know, because they never expressed a true feeling.
No, we came to see our family. What are we doing here? So, but I think they were trying to make the best of it, and then of course they just thought, no, we can't sleep. This is awful. There's some awful young party going on, which I wouldn't have liked at any age. But I would have just opened the door.
Shut up.
I paid for this room. You can shut up. But they wouldn't ever do that. They'd rather just huff and puff and sort of, which is kind of sad. So, we're sort of portraying this beautiful society, but maybe our slightly angrier, less tolerant society is a little more healthy. I don't know.
Although, like, British society is still quite, like, repressed and polite compared to a lot of the world, to be fair.
Totally. And then it sort of comes out.
Comes out in, like, bursts.
And then because they've repressed so much, they sort of, like, kick someone for no reason, or shout at a lady or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, you're like, why did you shout at that lady?
I know, because I've been giving nice for 20 years and I can't do it. So right, that was that direction. That's, I mean, it's all very loose anyway. And then I put acting. Now I thought it was really beautifully acted. I thought it was amazing.
Yeah, really. And I loved the mother's little face. I just found so cute because she looked like a little doll. She was so smiley.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, did you did you ever watch a cartoon called Mrs. Pepperpot?
I did, Mrs. Pepperpot.
It
Yeah,
was like Mrs. Pepperpot. She was like Japanese Mrs. Pepperpot.
my sister used to have the Mrs. Pepperpot books. You
Oh
remember
my
those?
God, I loved it so much.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, she was.
But she was a bit Mrs. Pepperpot. Like she was so sweet and lovely.
She was. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
And apparently obese, as we've been told.
ridiculous. Wasn't it ridiculous? Mind you, having been to Japan, it's not.
Yeah, they're like tiny, tiny humans. It's true.
And then you get those sumo wrestlers that are like enormous. So it's very very weird. Yeah, but I thought it was really beautiful, really natural in a way that a lot of acting, Western acting in films, and pre Marlon Brando, which had come straight from the theatre, and so basically we're just acting like they did on stage,
Declaiming all over the place.
and, just pouring drinks and all this sort of thing, and and so even though it's often said that Marlon Brando invented modern acting, but this film was 2 years before Streetcar Named Desire.
These Japanese people did first, haha.
Yeah, well, I think they did, and I think the director is very, very. I mean, I watched a little YouTube thing about him, and basically there is not a gesture, a vase that he has not put in place. It's very controlled.
Yeah.
So I think that it'd be interesting to know how much control he had over the performances. I think a lot. I think.
Judging from the terrified mask on Noriko's face.
Yes, like she's like, oh, yes, I would love to have you sleep on my floor, even though I've got to get up early in the morning. I would love that.
I'm going to give you some money, even though I clearly have no money because I live in a 1-bedroom and I don't even have a kitchen.
And I'm going to take a day off work, even though my boss doesn't really want me to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The scene that I thought was really beautiful was between the sister who lived at home.
Yeah.
And
yes.
who was horrified by the behavior of her other siblings.
Yes.
And Noriko.
Yeah, that she was really on
at the end, just sort of at the end. I thought that was really, really beautifully done, and it made Noriko is just an angel on her.
Yeah, is she saying you shouldn't have to be like that, Noriko? They should do more. Or, I don't know what she's. I can't remember what she's saying.
Well, she's furious because she thinks they should have stayed longer when the mother died, and then the sister was like, "Oh, I want her comb and I want her summer kimono and stuff." It's like literally you're at the dinner after her funeral. You could wait a day. Jesus.
I know that was really awful, but that does happen a lot.
Yeah. But they seemed a little bit like the dad went out of the room and they were like, okay, well, now we can talk about the practical stuff.
Yeah, I want this, I want that, and yeah.
And are you going to go, should we get the express train now? Should we just go kind of thing?
I know, we're talking about times and yeah, I mean, it would have been nice if there had been some sort of subtext that they were finding it all too. I think nowadays you might get a scene where they're too upset and they have to leave, they can't cope. Or they
yeah.
work. But it
felt quite callous though, didn't it? It felt quite like
yeah, that's that.
Deciding to go when the mother was sick, she hadn't died yet.
Yeah.
Oh well, I suppose we should go. And then they were like, well, I suppose we should bring more. Like it was all very practical and quite like.
And in the middle of that, she had this huge.
The little meltdown. Which I didn't think was fake. I didn't think it was like, oh, I thought that was real. But yeah, so maybe there was some sort of denial there, like I'll just carry on with the day-to-day life and then pretend that never happened. I don't know. Yeah, that's not very healthy though, is it, mean sister?
No, it's not. And is that, remind me, because I think you watched it more recently than I did. I think it was about 2 weeks ago that I watched it. But that's the scene with Noriko and the sister that stayed at home, where she says, when it all comes out, how really upset she is, and that she's, the mask sort of crumbles, and then you suddenly realise you're not happy. You're really not happy.
Well, I think and I mean, they kind of like there's a lot of allusion to it, like that the husband's been gone for 8 years or whatever, and they didn't seem to have been married that long. And like she still has his picture up in the flat. And both of the parents at some point say to her, I think the dad even says to her, like, you should move on now.
Yeah.
Want to. Like, it's just...
They're all worried about her.
They're all worried about her because she's clinging to this memory of this.
Yeah. And so maybe that's why she still clings on to the parents, because once she's got she can still think of herself as
a connection. She's part of that family.
And they identify that as being a little bit unhealthy, and they also realise that they won't be around all that time. And then she's stopped the brush on the phone, and that's going to cause her problems later on. So I mean, I love this kind of thing. I like books about human relationships. I'm currently reading a J.K. Rowling Cormoran Strike book, and I love them because she's such a good writer. But I'm not interested in the crime at all. But she's so good with characters. I'm interested in the relationship between him and the temp who works for him. So I really get that out of novels. There's the writer Henry James that most people find impossible to read. I love him because all his books are psychological, and it takes about 5 pages to talk about somebody drinking a cup of tea, but it's all about what's going on in their mind. And you see, I really like that, and so I really responded to this when I thought there's all these complexities of human behaviour coming out that strike a chord of truth with me, and they're not.
I think it's probably one you could rewatch and get more out of.
Yeah.
Knowing what happened, knowing what happens.
Yeah, you must have been thinking after an hour, literally, what's going to happen.
I was like, what is happening?
Nothing. Oh, it's a nice house.
Oh.
Yes.
People are real polite.
Right, you just think somebody's going to get shot. That'd be great. Somebody got shot.
Yeah, is they're gonna kill someone? Is one of the parents what's gonna happen? But it was just also because it's called Tokyo Story, and I was like, well, this is not a story about Tokyo.
It's a Tokyo, but it's not a story.
It's not a story. It's set in Tokyo.
Well, that's the next thing I put. I put sort of impact, which I thought would, even if you hated all the acting and you hated the direction and the camera work, and all that sort of thing. Very often, you can't really come to terms with those films, but the film will have some sort of impact on you. And I think at the end of it, it did. Halfway through, I was like, oh my god, another hour of this. It's quite lulling, and I watched it quite late at night.
Yeah, it's also because it's black and white as well, I think.
Yeah.
You don't. I was like, it's all it all looks the same.
Yeah. It just a little bit monochrome. But I thought the impact at the end. I thought about it a lot, and and I can't help. Both my parents have passed away, so you can't help identifying with it to a certain extent. I've been in a house where sort of stuff like that happens. I can honestly say with my hand on my heart, although when I get up to heaven, he might tell me different. But when my father visited, I didn't ignore him. you can vouch for that.
Yeah, no. He was there in the pub. I saw him.
They're everywhere. So
it is funny. It's funny though, isn't it? There, because I think a lot. I mean, I catch myself doing it, and I think these kind of Corona-y times have changed a little bit because I do have way more contact with my family than when I'm working, just because you've got the time to.
Yeah.
And I think you do find yourself. I mean, it's a reason to see your parents isn't because you're afraid they're going to die, but you do, and I see it amongst my friends, and I see it with other people. You do kind of take the fact of them for granted.
Totally.
I see that the kids, and I see it with some people. I find it so funny that people revert to teenage behavior, even 30, 40-year-old people around their parents. And I'm like, what's just happened?
We totally did. At the age of 30, I think, I had a Christmas and my two brothers, one of my brothers hid my shoes, and I had one pair of shoes. They hid them so I couldn't leave the house because I had no shoes. I had to buy another pair of shoes. So in revenge, I threw all my brother's clothes out of the window one night, then forgot, and it snowed. So all his clothes no. And I think I was
But
in
yeah.
and I was literally shouting, but he did that.
But he used to hold my shoes.
So you do totally revert to that around your parents and everything like that. But so yeah, it definitely struck some personal chords with me.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I did like it. I think a lot of international films, because I think we're very used to a way of watching films from that period. I mean, there is a real set camera shots, music, plot, whatever. So
Yeah.
it takes some getting used to. And as I said, I've been watching some other international films with this, and all of them take some getting used to, I can tell you. Sorry, there isn't somebody getting murdered outside my window.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, this could
There's
be,
more plot in this video than there is in Turkish.
this will be police evidence of this, because it's like some of this children, it's like the 1970s all again. Children playing in the
Children playing on the road.
Exactly. They're not in there going like this.
I guess as well because film, I mean, it still happens now, but films often use the soundtrack to tell you how to feel.
Yes, exactly.
That is like dun dun dun, boo, 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 and there was absolutely that. There was just some nice music playing every so often. You were like, oh.
It tended to be in between scenes, and then when
it was almost like on tracks, wasn't it? It was like, here's some scenery and some nice music.
Yeah.
Now here's dialogue.
Yeah. And then when people were actually talking, there was actually quite long silences, and that reminded me a little bit of, because I've watched 2 Ingmar Bergman films in this thing, and a lot of that, he does that a lot. I've noticed there's a room, and instead of following the people around like Steadicam, which you get now, somebody will come in and then walk out, but you're still in the room, and then they'll come in and somebody else will come in, and the camera will stay there for ages.
And you're like trying to see around the corner. You're like,
it's like people coming in and out of the scene. It's I suppose it's, I don't know, maybe it was a technical thing, maybe it was just cheaper, I don't know, but
they literally can't be bothered relighting this scene.
So Ingmar, what was the meaning of that? We couldn't afford to have 2 cameras.
Yeah, there was 1 camera and we only had 1 camera operator, so.
So I kind of liked the difference of it. I got used to it, but it was very long, too long, a little bit. Not as long as
it was a little bit too. I think the build up was too slow.
Yeah, they're just methodical.
And also they gave you so much detail. Like, yes, I have telegrammed him. He will pick us up at the station. You know that, didn't we?
Yeah. Nowadays, somebody gets a you don't need that. You don't need this.
And I was a bit like, I was expecting him not to be at the station. Why did they tell us this information?
Yeah. It's something weird going to happen. And
something weird going to happen.
The building, you think, oh God, we're on another location now. She's at work, and there's her desk, and she's got to ask her boss for a day off. And is he going to say no? But no, he says yes.
No, he says yes, and then
she has a day off.
She has a day off. And they do nice things together.
Yeah, so I started thinking, oh right, she's a working girl in 1953 Tokyo, so I took that from it. But yeah, it was exactly what you expected to happen. There wasn't any sort of
every time you change location, you were like, oh, and then you're like, no.
Nothing.
Oh, look, they're having a nice time sightseeing now. Oh.
Yeah, that I was just trying to look out the window and seeing if I could break it.
What's that? What are you seeing?
But I just got the impression, maybe it's because, I'm getting on a bit and I get tired easily. I was thinking they really don't. They want to be in. They want to be in talking to their kids about what they're up to, and they want to be sitting, on the floor. And they don't.
And on the floor, having rice crackers, because apparently they love a rice cracker.
Crackers, yeah. And she says something like, I'll just give them rice crackers. Don't give them that.
Yeah, because the mean sister, her husband was like, oh, because that was one of the things I was like, he went to Asakusa. I was there.
Oh, yeah.
He came back with expensive sweets from the market, and she was like, don't give them. They love rice crackers. Oh, yeah. And then he ate like 3 of them. I was like, oh.
I think she's just supposed to be thoughtless. I think she's just, I wonder how, I would be interesting to watch her in Japanese, and understand it.
Yeah, I wish I understood Yeah, because
Yeah.
I think you don't get the nuances of language when you're reading,
No.
sending someone an email,
Yeah.
and they can completely misconstrue what the sentiment behind it totally. So I guess there's a bit, although, and also you don't understand people's tone either.
No.
You're
No.
reading the subtitles, and okay, you do get some idea of it, but because everything that they say is so monotone anyway.
Yeah, I think it was less
Really
so.
tell.
They don't say a lot, and they don't speak as fast. Like I just watched 8.5, the Fellini film.
Italian.
Very fast, and dubbed into Italian, bizarrely. But that's for another thing. But
That's for another episode.
that's for another episode. But yeah, you just think, you get somebody speaking really fast, and they will just say yes. They said more.
Yes.
They definitely said more than
And
yes.
they made some funny little noises. Especially Noriko used to go, hey, a lot. And they would like translate it. And I was like, that wasn't a word. Just went, hey. And the dad made these like kind of grunting noises. I was fascinated by it. He was a bit like, ugh.
Yeah. He just seemed so tired at the end, I thought that was really, there just seemed to be a real feeling about getting old and infirm. It's never a good thing. So it's not. It's like, I'm sure he could have enjoyed his old infirmity more. No, I just think it's not right. What you do.
Be happier.
Yeah, but I mean, there was a feeling of having to sort of put up with this.
Yeah.
Sad and so kind of melancholy. But
then I did think that maybe he'd get to go back to drinking, which he seemed to really enjoy.
Yeah, exactly. And that was weird. We sort of think, because that was very loose, that scene, and like all the other scenes have been very set and very strict. But that was very real. Those drunk people in the bar. That was all very.
It was about as racy as it got as well, talking about that geisha that they all fancied.
Oh yeah. Yeah, which would probably be really, really shocking in those days or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But right, so I'm going to say this is the last question of this chat. Do you see why it's a classic? It is actually Sight and Sound. I think it's number one. I think Sight and Sound 3 years ago voted it the greatest film ever made, and I think it is in another survey. It's number 3. So interestingly, it wasn't a success when it was released, and not even in Japan. So it's grown in reputation over the years. But
I mean, I wouldn't. It's hard. I mean, it's hard because it's all arbitrary in opinion, isn't it? Like,
the lists are terrible, aren't they? Really.
Some people talk about greatest song ever, and like you're like, oh, this shit.
Yeah, it depends who you are and what it means to you.
Yeah, I have to say I did enjoy it more than I thought I would, and more than I thought I was going to once I started watching it. And I was like, why has John done this to me?
I did say to a friend of mine, some of my friends are going to be saying, well, that's a couple of hours, I'll never get back. Thanks.
Yeah, does he hate me, or why am I doing this? I wouldn't call it the greatest movie ever made.
Because we all know that is The Devil Wears Prada. No.
Yes. By all means, move at a glacial pace. But I think it's a really beautiful film. I think it's really and I'm sure if you were like a filmmaker, like really into filmmaking, the different style would be really fascinating.
I can see why film buffs love it. I can see why. I mean, I'm a film buff, but I can see why filmmakers and people who study.
Yeah, like proper students of film would find it fascinating.
Because he has a very distinctive voice, and it's a bit like composers, because we work in music, so I can see composers. All the great composers have a really distinctive voice, and you can hear it straight away. And he has a very distinctive style, which is very time. So a lot of people would go for that. And I think
that kind of the sort of just simple family storytelling nature of it is, the Verismo style of it.
Yeah, a friend of mine said it was the best film he'd ever seen about the family, and I think, well, I know what he means. It resonates as being true to me.
Yeah,
not just in Japanese films, because one of the things I say is that maybe it's because I'm getting that way, But I just hate, without being judgmental, I think our elderly do get a rough deal a lot of the time, and it's very easy to forget about them. And I had this theory that it was to do with the fact that we live in a capitalist country, and the elderly and children don't earn money, so they get the rough end of the deal. Everything's towards young people because they've got disposable income. But then you see, actually, no, people are horrible to the elderly everywhere.
Everywhere, even in Japan in 1953.
So that made me feel better. So yeah,
I always thought of and it's probably one of those things that just is completely untrue that you just hear. But I always thought of Japan and Japanese culture as being very respectful of their elderly, or at least that's what. But I don't know if that was maybe a more like ancient thing, and this is a big thing about. Basically, I know nothing about Japanese culture, so I can't.
No. Are they adopting Western and do our attitudes towards our elderly come from the capitalist lifestyle that we've adopted and Japan adopted hugely? Because it's the beginning of the thing that made Japan what it is today, which is this amazing money-making machine. Modern, and that's just starting. So these people are working really hard. And so things like parents and children and that are starting to get ignored. So maybe that's the price we pay for the prosperous life sort of thing. And those elderly parents, they come from the country and they just remember a completely different world where it just wasn't like that. And that's probably not how they treated their parents, so they're probably looking around thinking, what is this world?
What have I done? What have I raised?
Where is this place? Where is this Japan? It's so alien to me. So I thought that all came over really well, not in the first hour. But
not the first hour. Yeah, maybe if you don't watch the first hour, maybe just start it.
Just look at the.
It's fine. They get on a train and they go and see their family. You don't need to.
A little précis from somebody. This is the story of blah blah blah.
Yeah.
This is the daughter, and Aaron, you're off.
Now we meet them in the middle of their story. I'd love to have seen more of the daughter who got left, the one who got left behind, the one who lived with the parents.
Yes. Yeah.
The teacher.
With Noriko at the end, where she's so angry, that whole scene, and that's very famous. That scene. That line didn't strike me as being particularly anything, but afterwards, it's a famous quote. Life is disappointing. Well, I think my life's been very disappointing. I think it can be. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it isn't. I think to sit there and go, life is disappointing.
Life is disappointing. Well, for some people.
But you get a party and somebody just starts a conversation by saying, life's disappointing. Okay.
I guess she was being the saint that she is and trying to defend the pretty shitty behavior of the other people.
Yeah. And you're young and you expect too much from people.
Lower your expectations. Lower your expectations. You'll have a much better time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I see that now, with the sort of the millennials trying to change the world, like every generation of that age has tried to change the world. And then it's not like they failed to change the world. They just kind of realized that it's not as easy as they thought, and that things are more complicated, and they're not perfect, because that's something that most young people don't realize. But then they're not as perfect as they thought they were. So, so maybe she's just coming from a position of, life's not that simple, is basically what she's trying to say, which I do get on board. God, we found a lot in this film, didn't we?
Yeah. Although my favorite thing, on a much lighter note than that, I don't know if you noticed that, because obviously when she's dying, the poor mama, she's lying on the floor, and they erected this little almost like a fishing rod with the bag of ice on it.
What was that?
I loved that. I was like, that's genius.
And I thought, I want one.
Cool. Yeah, I was like, I need one now.
I saw that too.
I was like, that is so cool.
I tend to fidget a lot, so I'd probably just better off sticking an ice bag to my head.
Also, the water is going to drip on you in the middle of the night, isn't it? But still, I thought, oh, wow.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing, which you wouldn't see it in a film here. So,
all I could figure out is that she died of being fat and a little bit too hot.
And when they first realised she's going to die, Ruth, when she can't get up off the floor, and I thought, well,
oh yeah,
I can't do that.
shit.
She has a little bit much trouble. She sort of goes, "Oh, I didn't quite spring up as I did earlier," and then she's dead. So that's something to think about every time I try and get off the sofa to make a cup of tea.
It's when she has the little dizzy spell in.
Oh yeah.
The spa, and they're like, but they don't pay any attention to it at all, and it's just she's like, "Oh, I'm dizzy," and it's like, "Oh, that's because we didn't sleep last night because it's awful here."
Yeah.
That I took from that, but then and like when she's with Noriko and she keeps forgetting stuff when she's leaving, and she's like, "Oh, my head these days," and now back I'm like, "Oh, was she trying to say like I'm not well?" Basically, I think I'm wondering if the mother for the whole thing was trying to signal to everyone that she wasn't very well.
She thought, she really felt.
And when she made that weird statement being like, if anything should happen, you don't need to come home now that you've seen me. And they were a bit like, what? What are you talking about?
Odd. That was kind of odd. And I thought, you really do have to go home. But I mean, my parents used to say things like that to me all the time. You know, like, you don't have to come. But I know they didn't mean it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Read between the lines.
5 years. You're like, what? No, I mean, they would say that because they didn't want to be a burden. They didn't want.
Don't spend your money coming home. Blah blah blah. And
they didn't want me to. They didn't want. They don't want to think that I'm going because I feel like I have to. And I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want anybody visiting because they didn't want to. Yeah. A huge hassle, but they felt like they had to. And I think that's what they didn't want. But they didn't have to worry because I loved going over there. But so maybe it was because of that. And she'd seen how busy they were and thinking, well, you know, if it's going to be this inconvenient, it'd probably be better if you didn't come, which is really sad, I think.
But then I wonder if she was just a bit like, well, if you're going to be this busy all the time, don't bother then.
Really don't bother because you just annoy me, sort of thing. And also I did get, this struck a chord with me because I'm not going to say it was. I had some friends, and when I was in my 20s, and they had their parents to stay, and there was this thing when they were organising lots of stuff for them, and I sensed that they didn't want to go, and they were giving each other looks and things, and all this sort of thing, and I thought, I get that. They know they are having conversations with themselves, you know, like do, and they both know that they don't want to do any of this, but they're putting on this act. And I thought that they did that really well because I think, mind you, they didn't really talk to each other while they were lying next to each other in bed, which was a bit weird.
No.
You think when they got into bed, they would go, Jesus Christ, what a bitch.
She's a cow, that woman.
The right cow. Oh my God, why did she marry him? My son's too good for her. You know, all this sort of thing. Oh no, she's too good. But no, they were still sort of going, are you all right? Yes. Are you all right? Yes. Yes, I'm fine. I thought, well, you're obviously not. So, that was a bit frustrating that nobody said what they said. Anyway, look, I'm going to wrap up because we're going to go on all night.
We got loads out of this movie. Look at that.
And I would say I can see why it's a classic. I wouldn't put it in my top 10 personally, but I think I get why Sight and Sound.
And I feel very clever now having seen it, so when people talk about it I can be like, yes, Tokyo Story. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, and then you can say,
it's very like Tokyo Story, isn't it?
Yes. Monogatari or something like that. That's totally not the word is, but you can say Tokyo, and you can say the Japanese name and the whole and Ozu's first name, and just by his first name. And
or just my friend Ozu.
And I tell you something, watch a little clip of all his other films and just see, there's Tokyo Story in colour, and there's just Tokyo Story, and they all look exactly the same. They're all...
Hey, look, if he got the formula right one time, then just keep repeating it.
Never changed, and he went right into the 60s, I think I'm right in saying.
Oh, okay.
Colour, but they all look like that. They all look like people in a room, families, sister comes to stay, whatever, brother, somebody comes to stay. So he never really changed the formula. Okay, Ruth Mullholland, thank you so much for being my first person to do this. I was going to call it Hector and John's International Films with Friends, but Hector's asleep. Hector's my dog.
Hector, there he is.
Maybe he'll be awake the next one. But, I think he's been watching Tokyo Story. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, let's put him right to sleep. He loves it.
No, his favourite film is The Incredible Journey, like all my pets. incredible, Jenny.
Actually, now that's made me want to go and watch that now. We need to cry.
We can't really have Hector and John's children's friends with friends because it's a little bit sad. Although I quite like the idea. No, we won't do that. Anyway,
No,
Ruth, I had a lovely gin and tonic with you. It was great to chat. And,
nice to see you.
Bye. I'll speak to you soon. Okay.
Speak to you
right.
soon.
I'm just going to switch this off. I might just get it done. Yes. Right. Okay, we're recording. Oh my God, how exciting. Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is John Morrissey, and I'd like to introduce you to Ruth Mullholland, who's one of my best friends in the entire world, and that's not an exaggeration. I mean, I probably won't say that to everybody who does that with me. Well, I won't say best friends.
One of my closest 100 or so friends.
Definitely in the top 10 of the reserves. Definitely.
I'll take it.
So the reason why I'm here, this is really weird because I don't think anyone will watch this, but I don't care. So I'm literally talking to myself and you, Ruth. But
and my mum.
And your mum. And your mum. Hello, Patty. Hey, Patty.
She'll probably watch it.
Oh, Patty. I had been doing some YouTube videos by myself, and I got so over that. So I made a list. I'm a terrible list maker, very OCD-like. So I made a list of 15 international films. I'm going to say international films, not foreign films, because that just suddenly sounds a little bit racist. Foreign films. International films that are often in the top 10 best films ever made, and I've never seen them. And so I thought, I'm going to make somebody else watch them with me. Just make me watch it, first of all, because I'd probably just switch it off after half an hour if I thought it was just me. No, that's not a very good start, is it? But to make me watch it, and also to sort of, just find out whether it's just me who thinks they're good or bad or overrated or whatever, and see if we, who are not, I'm not a film student. I don't think Ruth is a film student, unless it's part of her life that she hasn't told me about. And so we're just like, I'm definitely a film buff. I would say I'm a buff, but yeah. So let's see if we get why these are great. And I'm not going to make myself go, oh yeah, I'm going to think about. I'm going to study. I'm going to literally see how it makes me feel, kind of thing. And so I'm asking some of my friends to do that with me. And this is the first one. And so Ruth Mullholland, and we work together.
When we work.
When we work, yes, we're currently on lockdown, and so this is a bit of a lockdown project. Probably both of us wouldn't have 5 minutes to do this in real life, would we?
I definitely wouldn't spend 2 hours, 15 minutes of my free time watching a Japanese movie.
No, which brings me on to the reason why we're here. And the film I chose for Ruth and I to watch is I can't remember his first name. It's Japanese. I'm just going to call him Ozu, Japanese, very respected and famous Japanese film director, and his probably most famous film, Tokyo Story. I think I'm right in saying it's from 1953. I really should have written all this. Yeah, nice. Thank you, Ruth's coming in there. It's from 1953. And so I've made a list of, we're going to be really naff here because I've got a load of categories. I'm going to mark them out of 10. Okay.
Ooh, fun.
Ozu's not watching. Barry Norman's not watching. I don't care.
I don't care.
We're not going to upset the Ozu estate. So Ruth, can you